How's your hair, man?
It's under a hat.
It's under a hat. Hey, folks. Welcome back to the channel. And John here from Wild Boar Cycling. And
Brian.
Great. And so, Brian, what's on your mind today?
Well, yeah, so just quick backstory. I was sitting in the faculty room and a bunch of colleagues, I walked in, they were like, hey, you'll know this. Is it better to work out in the morning or in the afternoon? And the conversation went on, and I came stuff off the top of my head, and then I went home and I said, you know what? I was just kind of talking out my rear end. Maybe I should Google this. And so I started searching to back up what I thought I had read previously.
Great.
And then I thought it'd be a great conversation to have here.
Cool.
When is a good time for you to work out?
That's a good one. Okay. Sit back. Enjoy. So, Brian, I think that's a really great question about the best time to work out. But I think the bigger question is, what are you hoping to get out of it? So I want to know your hypothesis, and then let's talk about some research.
Well, before we go deeper than that,
Okay.
there is a flat answer.
Okay.
That you guys don't have to listen to the rest of this video for.
No.
The flat answer is whenever you will work out.
Absolutely.
That is the best time to work out. If you can't work out in the afternoons, morning, do it. If your morning doesn't work, work out in the afternoon. Whatever time of day you will actually do it is the best time.
Perfect.
If that's not an issue, then we can now dive into the weeds.
Okay, let's jump into the weeds just
Yes.
a little bit.
Yeah.
So let's think about your goals. Is your goal for working out weight loss, or is your goal for working out, and we're talking about cycling specific, goal for cycling to increase speed and go faster on your bike? So I think those are big questions to ask, and what comes to your mind on that?
Yeah, well, I mean, as always, it depends. And so I spent quite a bit of time refreshing things I had read previously and then digging into more and looking at all kinds of, research papers and then compilations of research papers. And there's tons and tons of data out there.
Yes.
And it all comes down to, it depends.
It depends on what you want.
What you want. And so there's a caveat, but here's my general hypothesis, and you can pick holes in this if you want. If you are going to lose weight, or you're base training, so zone 1, zone 2, long-term endurance, then before you eat breakfast is an optimal time to work out, but there's an asterisk. If you are trying to train for VO2 max, peak power, things like that, where they're gonna be high intensity workouts, you need to have eaten.
Yes.
And so at least from what I read, it tends to be not about what actual time of day it is. It's, have you eaten yet since you woke up, or do you have a full stomach?
And let's go back and take the science piece of that, and that has to do with your glucose level, correct? So if you're getting up in the morning or going, jumping right on it to go out, you don't need to eat before you go out to do one of those morning workouts. That's what the science says. You don't need to do that. If you're going out on a monster long ride or long run, then yeah, you better put some fuel in there before you start that.
Well, yeah, and it really breaks down to what really differentiates zone 2 from zone 3. And that's what your body's burning. And so if you're trying to lose weight, or you're trying to train your body to stay in zone 2, you're burning fat. Zone 1, zone 2 burns mostly fat. When you're sleeping, your body's burning fat. And so if you get up and you do that before you eat, then your body is already in the fat burning mode.
Correct.
And so you will have optimal performance in weight loss and or base training gains, as long as you stay in zone 1, zone 2.
All right, so let's take the other example that we mentioned just a moment ago. What if I'm trying for speed? What if I'm trying to work out, really hard to get faster on my bike and do that? I think that's where the afternoon ride or evening workout pays better dividends.
Yeah, and I mean, I kind of lean towards them as afternoon rides because who has time to work out after breakfast? But at least from what I have seen, it tends to be less about time and more about did you eat breakfast? But it has to do with if you're doing a VO2 max session, if you're in zone 4, you're running mostly on glucose, sugar.
Correct.
And if you haven't eaten since last night, you're going to run out of sugar really, really quickly, and you're going to bonk. And then that does a bunch of things. One is you're hungry the rest of the day. And so you might be consuming lots more calories than you burn in your workout. And so you are undoing your weight loss. And then supposedly some of the studies that I saw is if your body like runs out of sugar, it goes into like survival mode.
Correct.
And is no longer in training mode.
No.
And you don't get the gain benefit.
Nope. Hey, let's go. I want to talk about the afternoon ride though, from a physiological standpoint, about body metabolisms and the enzymes that at that time of the day actually facilitate going faster and going harder. And that's all just part of the body function. You know, you've already started your day, you've been through all that feast or famine piece, and now you can go out and, you know, really work on, you know, some of those higher numbers and the things like that. So I think this is a complicated question. I like how you answered it to start with. Boom, let's just say the best time to work out in a day? When you can do it.
When you're going to do it, yeah.
Right.
I will say there's one other side thing. This is less cycling related. I have read something. This is particularly about being older, and I say older is out of your 20s. Protein is, your body doesn't use it as efficiently, and the older you get, the less efficient your body gets with it. I have seen some things say that if you're strength training before you do, strength training before you eat your protein primes your body to absorb the protein. And so you will be more efficient at getting that protein, which means you have to eat fewer chicken breasts if you're trying to look like Wolverine. So that's maybe one caveat. And that's, again, your strength training, that's not burning carbs necessarily. You're not doing 2 hours of high intensity. This is lifting weights. So that might be one that also could be done in the morning.
Yeah, agreed, Brian. But one of the things you touched on here, which is that other can of worms, is nutrition.
Yeah.
I'm just going to share real quick what my particular routine is, because as you know, Brian, I'll go out and my rides are typically longer. They're 4 to 5 or 6 hours of a training ride. And I focus my breakfast routine, because I do eat before I go, on protein, whether it be egg whites, yogurt, oatmeal high in protein. That's my go-to. One of the other things that I've maintained throughout my, my athletic career, I guess, is I had a chance to work with a nutritionist from the USA Olympic Training Center. Came and spoke to a group. And one of the things they stressed was, after your hard workout, you want to come back and take some carbohydrates. Carbohydrates can be in the form of a liquid, which are really good for rehydrating, but their kind of go-to when they were working with us was an orange juice, because lots of carbohydrates there, good to rehydrate. So just a couple of things to think about as you go forward. Yeah.
So I got one side tip that actually came out of this faculty room conversation.
Okay.
Which I have a colleague, she does a lot of mountain biking stuff, and she does like spin classes at 5 a.m.
Okay.
Empty stomach. And that woman eats all day long.
Okay.
And she's constantly hungry. And we had this conversation, and she goes, that running out of sugar and then being hungry all day perfectly describes what I do. So the next class she went to, she didn't want to eat, because who can do high intensity workout on a full stomach? But she bought instead of a water bottle, she brought a sport drink.
Okay.
And so she was taking the carbs as she was working out, didn't have the bonk, wasn't hungry all day long. And so if you're like me and you can't work out on an empty stomach, and you can't work out intensity on a full stomach, instead of water, do a sport drink that's got sugar or carbs in your hydration, and that will keep you from bonking and might help with the overcompensating, because I know I do that. If I don't eat enough on a ride, I'm eating all day long.
So Brian, with the morning workouts, and just one last thing, personal preference, I focus on trying to eat at least 2 hours before I go out for my effort.
That's good.
And that takes away that, from what your colleague was saying, she's doing a spin class at 5 a.m. Well, I'm not eating at 3 a.m. to go out and do a spin class, but I'm going to eat between 6 a.m. and 7 a.m. if I'm going out for a 9 o'clock ride.
Yeah.
So I want that your body has a chance to digest that so you don't get that nauseating feeling. And I know you guys out there in YouTube land have had that before.
Yeah, that's the worst.
Yeah, that's the worst feeling. So you had one more thought about this?
Yeah, one more thought about this. And this is if you're trying to experiment on yourself and what works for you, you have to be really careful about what you're perceiving to what is actually happening. And I'll give you an example. Because a ton of the research says that you actually get better workout and can perform better in the afternoon. And I don't see that in me. The reason for that? I don't drink caffeine after noon. So if I go out on a 10 a.m. ride, I got tons of caffeine running through me. If I go down a 3 p.m. ride, no caffeine.
No caffeine.
And so, it's not the time of day, it's not the meal, it's whether or not I have caffeine in my system. And so you have to, if you're going to experiment on yourself and see what works for you, you have to be very mindful about all the variables.
There are a lot of variables, and we have probably opened up. We've probably generated more questions than we have answers today, but hey, that's okay too. It's good to think about these things. And
questions are what the comments are for.
yeah, drop those down there. Let us know what you're doing and what your preferred way to do that is, because we'd love to share that with the YouTube network out there in the Hive. Great. Okay. In the meantime, go get something to eat and go out and ride.
Have fun.
And keep the rubber side down, right?
Yeah.
Great. Bye, everybody.